To this week's Android Developer Office Hours, live from DroidCon Holland this week. We're in a very nice corridor that they've put us in outside of the main hall. There's lots of interesting talks going on in there. Something's different.
Stupid hat.
Awesome hat. Awesome hat days. Provided by Aaron. Absolutely fantastic. As usual, I'm joined by...
who have lent us some awesome headwear to make this this show all the more ridiculous. I mean, awesome.
Epic. As normal, I'm Richard Hyman, and I'm joined by
Nick Butcher, Matt Gore.
Hey guys.
And just-in-time delivery, we have one Sparky Road.
Oh, there he is, yeah. We're also waiting for some signage so you can tell what's going on. Hopefully this week will be slightly more sane than last week. And this guy, say hi to the internet.
Hey.
Hopefully this week will be a little more sane. Last week got a bit crazy over at DevOps. We couldn't really hear anything anyone said. But we've got a whole lot of questions in the moderator today. You can find that at developers.google.com/live/Android. And we'll rock on. Hey Sparky, good to see you again. Hey Yossi, good to see you. Sparky from Munich. And Paul, isn't it? Paul Hansen. Well, good to see you. Hopefully you've got some questions for us today, Paul. Have we got anything to talk about this week before we jump into the... We had so much last week with all the SDKs and APIs and phones and everything.
Yeah, it got a bit nuts for you guys, yeah.
Got a bit nuts for us guys. This week...
Nexus 10 back in stock in the UK, probably out of stock.
Nexus 4 should be arriving.
Yep, Nexus 4 is shipping to some people. Very exciting.
And who knows where you can get Nexus 4?
Carpet Warehouse?
Yeah, people are saying that's a bit expensive.
I don't know.
I saw on a thread earlier today.
Google.com/store/devices, probably.
Who knows how can I get a hat? Like Nicker.
Cruiserlight.com.
Cruiserlight.com.
C-R-U-Z-E.
C-R-U-Z-L-I-T. Click on the hat.
And we're really lucky to have Aaron from Cruiserlight here with us. And we have a big Android barbecue kicking off here in about 2 hours' time. Is it the first one that's ever happened in Europe? The first ever big Android barbecue.
Inaugural barbecue.
Yeah. I hope I don't get food poisoning.
I haven't seen the actual barbecue yet, so I can't.
You should come around so we can see.
Speaking of barbecue, these two are also making barbecue.
You said that now.
There he is. Okay. Aaron from Cruiserlight with us as well.
Oh, Yossi's got nice. He's got a big Android barbecue.
What's that?
He had a barbecue set.
Yeah, you just got it.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
dude.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah, that's from Andrew Bell.
Okay.
Yeah. And also this one.
Barbecue set for us.
Oh,
Okay.
cool. Yeah. Very cool.
Well, let's get some content into the show. And has anyone inside the Hangout got a question for us this week? Going once, going twice.
Anything on NFC? Come on, Paul.
I got one.
There we go. Of course.
It's just to do with these lock screen widgets. Do you have full access to like NFC and other resources on the lock screen widget?
Oh.
No? Okay, cool. I didn't think so.
No, there's still remote views, right? So it's only remotable objects you can put inside it.
Okay.
It's, pretty much just the same as the desktop widget. In most respects, you just set the flag to say whether you want desktop or lock screen or both inside your manifest. In the declaration, Winnie the Pooh's just joined us, in the declaration of the lock screen widget. And I think so far, the abundance of lock screen widgets have been clocked, which use a single font weight throughout.
Anyway, in fact, I think for security reasons, isn't the NFC chip powered down until screen on and unlocked?
Probably.
So I believe that was certainly the case before. I don't think that's changed in 2. I don't know offhand, but yeah, for that reason, I don't think. For that reason, it doesn't really sound possible for me.
That sounds good. Thank you. That's what I expect. Thanks, guys.
No problem at all. Yossi's joined twice, I believe, now.
Double Yossi.
Twice.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I just lost my Wi-Fi, so this one will drop soon.
Do you have the moderator up there, Sparky?
I do.
Oh.
We have a bumper crop of moderator questions this week. I count, I believe, 17 moderator questions.
You count, or you looked at the number which tells you how many there are? A handy finger.
But I actually counted them. Come
Go on
on.
then, let's hit.
Yes, I know.
Some beers happened last night. Carry on.
Leave it to me to use an order and operation where constant time will suffice.
Come on then, let's get straight into a
Okay. Best practices for unit testing Android apps. What is Google using and what's in the pipeline? Juice, Maven, Jane, Robotium, UI, Automator, Viewer, other.
To come to this hangout, I just walked out of a talk on testing, unfortunately. So, sorry, Sparky, you wanted to give a plug to the official guidelines first?
Yeah, I gave a link to the developer docs and that was my only answer.
So the question is, what is Google using internally, and that tends to vary app by app. So most people are using the normal kind of like JUnit stuff. I've been hearing a lot about Mockito gaining a lot of popularity since Mockito added support for mocking out Android objects. That's getting really, really popular. There's also the new UI Automator framework, which our internal testing team developed, and then that's just been open source in the latest tools release. One of my favorites is a service called Testdroid.com, who offer an awesome recorder service which lets you generate Robotium scripts, right? Which is very, very cool.
Testing on 100+ devices.
Yeah, and then you can upload it to a cloud where it tests on a bunch of different devices. Any other favorites?
It's just JUnit, I think, is one of the classics, really. I think the best bet maybe start there, just for really local testing. But Testdroid's awesome for getting across all the different devices. Obviously, there's other things like Device Anywhere and some other people that do similar sort of things where you can test on devices, get screenshots. But I think Testdroid adds an extra load of stuff with it, just running all of your own test scripts. So
Yeah, and whichever one you choose, if you do them all, it all comes down to the quality of the test scripts in the end. Are your test cases valid? Can you actually get them to pass and fail? And are they testing the right thing?
The whole hour.
This isn't me. This is just like Nexus 10 floating.
Anyway, you also specifically called out, we should say this is from Powder 366, so I'm going to take that to mean you're a snowboarder and therefore also. Asked specifically about Juice, and I would say...
all right.
I would specifically say that I don't think we use Juice very heavily. I think at one time the Google Drive app might have used it, but I don't know if that still holds. Mostly because of the runtime dependency resolution stuff, or the reflection APIs are pretty expensive on low-power devices, so I don't think we use Juice hugely. And there's this new crop of other dependency injection frameworks which are kind of using like ahead of time, compile time resolution. So stuff like what's the one I'm thinking of? Otto. No, that's the bus. Dagger from the Square guys, which is pretty interesting, or Android annotations and stuff like that, which let you do some kind of injection-y type things.
And Dagger's done actually by injecting code, so you can debug as well.
Yeah, so the compile time, you can see the code it spits out, you can debug it, and there's no additional cost on at runtime, which is what you really, really care about. So yeah, not so much Juice. The other tool which is upcoming, it's not launched yet, but we heard about it a couple of weeks ago, is the Square guys, the prolific open sources of awesome code. Working on a framework called Spoon, which we had a preview of. Jake Wharton from Square gave a very good talk at DevOps a couple of weeks back, and he gave us a sneak preview of the Spoon framework, which should be getting open source soon, which lets you run your tests across a bunch of devices and pull all the results off them and see screenshots and make sure you're not breaking your layout on device Y or whatever. So lots of cool tools out there. Anyway, I think I kind of nailed that question.
Hopefully that is a good answer to the question. Next muffin.
I've got one question based on the what you're saying about dependency injection. Has anyone ever used Spring? Because I heard some time ago Spring's been big in Java, but they were doing some stuff with Android. Anyone had any use for that?
I have not. I've used Spring in my former life as a JE developer. My gut reaction is it's a kind of a whole massive stack, which scares me about all these things happening at runtime on Android. I want to make sure that you're not, for some developer convenience, you're not sacrificing any performance or anything like that. So I haven't looked at it in depth, but I don't know, have some concerns.
Yeah, I've kind of always had it on the edge of my sort of vision, but I've never really paid much attention to it. I've not needed to, I guess. So yeah, anyone brave about it.
Yeah, and I'm always just bad at testing.
Okay, thanks guys.
Yeah, I'll make sure it's not doing anything at runtime. Especially, I don't really know what it's doing because you need to be careful there.
Very smooth.
So next question, Sparky, can you read it?
Right. Next question from the moderator. I want to perform an action when a user is near a location. I have a proximity alertness service that runs indefinitely. Is this good practice in terms of battery use, performance, etc.? Can we provide other ideas? Does Maps check-in and reminder work differently, etc.? I think geofencing has not been a real strength of our location API in the past. Rito published a blog post not quite a year and a half ago called Deep Dive into Location that's worth checking out. He calls out things like passively listening for location updates that other apps request so that you don't have to wake up the radios yourself to do it. Don't use any finer location than you need if you're if you're still several kilometers away from your destination. You don't actually need to know within 20 meters where you are. And then my advice is also just use some estimation to reduce the frequency of your updates. If you know that it's going to be 15 minutes before you get to your destination, you don't need to check your location every 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, Rito's Google I/O 2011 talk as well. Pro tips.
And
While you're at it, you might as well watch pro tips too.
didn't someone open source the code from that as well? In the library project?
2 implementations, yeah. So I think the guys from Navoda,
Navoda did one, yeah.
open source, if you go github.com/Navoda, I think it is, they've got a Navoda location, something like that, library where they basically took Rito's tons and tons of awesome best practice code and wrapped it up into a library project, so you can actually just listen to certain broadcasts for all these location events. And there's another one, I think, as well from the guys from Quite, so Stefano from Quite, I think, used Aspect J to do the similar kind of thing, so it compile time rather than using a library project, using Aspects. So 2 implementations of that. So yeah, I don't think Rito's code specifically does the case of geofencing. I wouldn't say having a service running the whole time is really the best thing. You basically want your service to die as soon as possible when it's not really doing any work. So you probably want to use a combination of the passive location provider and inexact repeating alarms to grab locations whenever anyone else fires up a location provider and also notify your app with the passive provider. But then if you need to check the minimum interval, like every 15-20 minutes, whatever, use the inexact repeating alarms as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly confused as to why they need to have a service running all the time as well, because that's kind of the whole point of proximity alerts. You're kind of just waiting for something to kick off, then you do something rather than have it running all the time. Yeah, so I think in practice right from the start, there's something that maybe we're not understanding, or perhaps you need to just think about it in a different way. Because the idea of having a service running all the time just scares me a little bit. Yeah.
All right.
Scare me.
You see, maybe running a service all the time if you're doing something like opportunistic, location matching. Say, where am I now, and what points of interest are near me? Sort of like the field trip app or something like that. Maybe then it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not going to be pulling the location the whole time, right? You want the service to stop itself as soon as it's stopped doing any work, and schedule itself to be woken up again after a period, and then stop itself, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you'd also get to a point where you want to use like the cell tower location as just a rough guide, wait for that to change, try and listen off the passive things, and if you need more fine-grained GPS, then start perhaps thinking about how you can sort of try and avoid it, and when you do use it sparingly. Yeah.
Good advice. Okay.
Thanks, Muffin.
Yeah. Giuseppe's asked us one question in the chat. How can we access a list view item filled using a simple cursor adapter that contains a progress bar, not bind to the cursor data from a different data? I should have read that before I read that. That's a long sentence with the negation. How can we access a list view item filled using a simple cursor adapter?
Can I explain probably better?
Yes.
Sure. Yes, please.
Okay. In the list view, I have the items binded with the simple cursor adapter. Okay. But I have one view more, is a progress bar, and from a different treat, I need to access to this progress bar and update the value. I don't want to update the database because you can imagine if I want to update the database each millisecond, I will have the access to the SD card millions of times. So I want to access just to the view of the list view and get the item, find the progress bar and update. All of this from a different thread.
So you've got a list, and at some point one of the items in that list will have a progress bar going across it.
Each item have one progress bar.
And you've got async tasks running.
Downloading, some downloading, and I need to refer to the progress bar and update the value. Because the items is binded to the simple cursor adapter, is binded with the cursor, I cannot simply just get the position or something like that and access to the view.
So you can't access, you don't know which particular item you want to pull out, is that?
Right. I lost around 1 week to find a solution, but nothing to do because from the
maybe
No, but if you extend list view and then use I forgot the term for it.
maybe something more like a custom view adapter, where you have your own code that draws the view, and at that time you can spin up.
No, I am just using the regular simple cursor adapter for this list view. I don't use a custom adapter.
So
This is the problem.
You can extend simple cursor adapter and then use to override the get view method, so it will fit your needs. And then if you use a view container that has the tag for each item in the cursor, you can do view get tag, and then you can update the same view.
Sorry to stop you, Gossi. I agree with you if we are inside the get view or new view, etc., but not from outside the thread, not from async task. Okay, the async task have nothing to do with the get view.
No, you can add a new method to the simple cursor adapter that you extend, and then from that adapter you can get the position and check the tag. And if the tag is the same tag you need from the cursor, then you can update the view. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, of course that I understand. Yeah, it's interesting as proposed. Yeah.
I think this is probably the
I
way
will try to do that.
I'd instinctively go to solve that problem. I guess where you're saying you don't know which item in the list you want to update, you need to find that way of matching the two up, which you do in the adapter one way or the other. But yeah, if you extend the simple cursor adapter, then you can start doing a lot of this stuff, and it's one of those things where you have to code it yourself because you're trying to do something outside of what the pre-built cursor or the pre-built adapter is designed to do. Yeah, to make sure you use the view holder design pattern.
Oh, yeah, view holder, and also use a hash map or something for faster using. And then when you use the view holder, set the hash map tag to the same view, so you can find it faster.
Yeah, I believe that this is the right solution. I was just looking something to don't change all the structure, don't change the simple cursor adapter with something else. Just looking for. That is why the custom adapter is there, just to personalize. Can I have one more question, probably? Yeah. Any way for non-system application to write in the secure settings?
No.
No way. But is it changed something in the 4.2 with the settings secure? What is it? What is this?
So some settings were moved to global settings from system settings. They didn't move to secure, they moved. So you can read and write system settings, or at least into the tables. And some of those items have now been moved into global settings where they're now read-only. The main one of those is flight mode.
Some things just like in multi-user kind of tablets, it just doesn't make sense to have a per user setting for like flight mode. You know, it should be like a global setting. So there was some refactoring of where the settings live to support multi-user.
Yeah, so if you want, if you've got a widget which used to turn flight mode on and off, now it's best just to send the user to the settings screen for flight mode, to the network and wireless settings screens. That's the only place now that's the place.
So if I understood well, there are many applications that use batteries level, etc., that must be updated for the 4.2, right?
No, because it doesn't fail. All it does is just return to say that it didn't write the value. It's the same situation.
I
it's
see.
not the application. It's not going to throw an exception.
Is there any other way we can save information to somewhere in the system, like the secure, that is accessible from only from the application that write the information?
Your own.
I don't understand the question.
Shared preference.
Okay, I will repeat again. I'm looking for somewhere where to write some information, and only my application can access to this information.
Yeah, you're
not like where.
You're in your own shared preferences. You can just, or any file you can open as private, and then it's not accessible to anyone else. It's your own.
Where? Sorry again.
Multiple of your own applications, or just one application?
One application.
Oh,
yeah. All the files, all the data for your application is protected.
But protected when they root to the mobile and use some Explorer, they can find any files, any database, anything.
Nothing's protected and it's rooted. I mean, if you want to keep things so that they can't read it after the device has been rooted, I don't know, your own encryption scheme or something is probably what you'd have to do.
Your API? I don't know.
Yeah, you might be able to use the Keystore API. I'm not certain.
So yeah, for the most part,
use case.
Yes.
For the most part, yeah, you just use the protection that Android offers you. But if you're concerned about rooted users as well,
yeah, I know that the data of the application is accessible only from the application. But if they use some work around, they can find the data. They can change everything. I'm looking, and now. If till last year's the 20% of the people have a rooted phone, now they are 80%.
Anywhere near that.
No way. Less than.
Yeah, I would definitely say less than 1% of people have a rooted phone. But
How much?
At the end of the day, this is kind of arguments mute. Like, it's not a secure computing environment, right? Like, this is a piece of code running on a user's device, an untrusted device, right? You can't be 100% sure. I mean, there's ways you can help, and Android does as much as it can. But at the end of the day, it's code running on their device. If it's super secure, then don't keep it on the device. Keep it on the server or something.
Yeah, at any point, anyone could run this on an emulated or simulated environment and get access to that data anyway. So there's not going to be a place that you're going to be able to put that to keep it totally secure.
Because in one of our application till the version 4.2 of Android, we was using the encryption AES encryption, but I don't know why starting the version 4.2 it's crashing when we try to encrypt. You know why?
Yeah, there was a change to secure element. Some people were making bad assumptions of about how secure random, how secure random worked. I think we have a blog post coming out on this, right?
Yeah. There'll be more information on it soon. But
I don't have details at hand, but yeah, the implementation of secure random has changed slightly. So if you were making bad assumptions about how it worked, then it will break for you.
Okay, thank you.
We have seen a few apps break on secure random.
Ping us offline, and I'll try and dig out the exact change you need to make. But we have a blog post on this.
And what did you suggest during this time till we find the final solution? How we can work around the problem of encryption in 4.2?
So if your app's not working, if it completely fails on 4.2, then I guess for a temporary measure you could set a max SDK on your APK so that 4.2 users can't download it. Would be one way to do it until you fix the bug.
Okay.
I can work with you offline. We'll try and.
But yeah, we can resolve this. This is a huge issue. Ping us after the show, and I'll send you some sample code.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
And yeah, as I said, or as Nick says, there will be a blog post going out soon, making that available to the wider audience. Okay. Somebody has joined us in the
I'm getting grief on the comment thread for not wearing a hat.
Yes, you are.
It's hot in here.
It is.
Stefan, where's your hat? I know it's swapped hats. You've got the blue. It is hot in here.
Okay.
I guess it's probably saying.
It's why we're facing this way in the corridor, because if you face that way, it's just sun and brightness and you can't see us at all.
Mm-hmm. Who said that? I can't see you.
Can we get onto the multi-threading question, because I want to answer that one.
Okay. Next multi-threading question, nothing.
Oh no, there's another one in the before that.
Well, you can just jump straight to it.
Okay.
Well, be crazy.
Okay. Okay, Rambura, I guess, in the UK asks, what happens to the worker threads in a pool during some network queries to be displayed on the UI when the activity is destroyed, e.g. like a config change? And what are activities and tasks described in terms of Android OS, Linux processes and users and so on? So, good question. So generally, an Android application is a user, there's like one user per application at install time that you can have. That's not quite true. You can actually share the user ID between your applications if you set a flag in your manifest, but generally it's one user to one application and a single process, which is running the VM. So when the application starts, the process is started. It's forked from the zygote, and you get one thread. So that Java thread, which maps exactly to a Linux C thread. P-thread. I mean.
Yeah.
So then, but then you have many different ways in which you can do multitasking after that. So when you ask what happens to worker threads in the pool during some network queries, that's kind of an open-ended question. It depends how you create those worker threads. I mean, if you're talking about async tasks, which I suspect you might be, then those threads will continue to completion, but then they won't really have a context to call back on to, so that won't go anywhere. But if you are, going to do your own thing, so if you're going to create a thread yourself, or if you're going to use an executor service or an intent service or loaders or any of these good things, then you can have these tasks that persist the kind of destruction of your activity and recreation of the object. So it's kind of an open-ended question. Async tasks are super convenient, but not always the right answer to your problem. Take a look at some other stuff like intent services and handler threads and other such mechanisms as well.
Absolutely. And don't leak your activities.
No, never do that.
So I hope that answers your question.
Right.
What's that, Sparky?
Yeah, my sort of icing on that cake is if you are going to run an async task, either make sure that you don't rely on information from your context, or if you do, then when your context, i.e. your activity, goes away, kill the task. Kill the async task before you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to use async tasks quite frequently, I think, because it's so convenient, right? It's so easy to create and get these callbacks, which does all the marshalling of the threads all nicely for you. But you end up, if you have to survive like rotation changes and things like that, you end up having to write some extra stuff. So I've actually been more inclined to use a handler thread these days and pass messages. I find you get much more control over, when stuff happens and how it kind of survives these events.
Yeah, I still like the occasional inline thread. Just chucking in a runnable, getting it to do it inline and coming back if it's going to something that just needs to be taken off the main thread.
Pro tip, if you're going to do that, make sure you're setting the process. So if you do create, just a thread, make sure you're setting the android.os.process, not the java.lang.process. It's a bit confusing because there's two process classes. Just make sure you import the right one and do the set thread priority to background.
Yeah, and that actually goes into a background thread in the kernel as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy? You got to answer the question you wanted to answer?
It's a good question. I like multi-threading.
Ron's disappeared. I was just about to ask if he had a question, but he's disappeared. What's up next? Is there anything coming through on the G+ thread?
Just lots of love for the hats. Lots and lots.
Why aren't the hats available for sale? Says Lionel. I think they are.
From
cruiserlight.com?
I think Cruiser Light plushie. You try that. They're here selling them at Droid Club Holland. So they offer
Holland.
Come to Holland. You can get them here. I think they're like €20 each. Or follow Aaron Karp on Aaron. Jeez, two wrong names in one sentence. I'll remember his name in a second. It's Aaron, though, right? Kurt. The barbecue guy. On G+.
Caston.
Yeah, Aaron Casson. That's very bad. Sorry, Aaron. Okay, next question. Let's do it.
Okay, so frequent commentator Jan Souza asks, how can I do a horizontal scroll on list view, like the G+ application in landscape on tablets?
That's a custom layout. But you can talk to Chris Baines. He is currently working on a project to do one. There are numerous other projects, but you're right. Currently, there isn't a system widget which we would recommend using to do horizontal scrolling on a list view.
There was some work on something in the support library. I've seen quite a lot of chatter on G+.
Staggered grid.
That staggered view that was removed. It's not ready yet, so I don't know what the status of that is. But you might be able to look at it as the basis of your implementation.
Yeah, have a look back through the commits. But yeah, slightly tricky.
For a reason, though, so
I mean, Gallery got deprecated because it wasn't being supported and it didn't do things quite right. And
It didn't convert views, did it?
Yeah.
There are a bunch of these implementations of horizontal list view on GitHub and so forth.
I predict we'll have 10 good implementations soon instead of none. There's a few people working on them. Yeah. So just search the community.
And
Don't have to come to Holland for that one.
The main one is just stick for one that's definitely using an adapter pattern, because one way or another, if you do that, then hopefully whenever the next one comes out, whatever it might be, it'll still be adapter based, so hopefully it won't be too much that you have to change.
Yes.
Because
Actually, I'll write one, take a look at list view and how it does recycling as well, because that's pretty key to getting performance.
It does a lot of crazy stuff in there, doesn't it? I swear at one point I started looking at it, and yeah, it's a bit mental.
It has apps list view, right? Is its parent that you could extend and change it somehow, I imagine.
Okay.
The community will provide.
Asking the community will provide. Maybe Sparky.
Muffin.next.
Yeah. We've got another one there, Sparky.
The next question? Great. Is there any way to enable multi-user support on AVD with Android 4.2 and the latest ADT 21? The option in settings is missing, and I can't see any option when creating the new AVD. Unfortunately, I don't know. So.
No, if you create, it used to be the case that if you created a high-resolution device, you got the tablet layout. I don't know if creating a high-resolution device means you get the multi-user.
I don't know. There may be some AM flags you can poke.
Mm-hmm.
So before we launched multi-user, people had already found it in JV in 4.1, and there were some activity manager settings you could toggle from the command line to turn it on. You could maybe try those. That's not an official answer. That's just me.
So try making a bigger emulator. Seriously, and yeah, have a look back through the people who managed to enable it on 4.1.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. They don't specify whether they've tried it creating a tablet. Yeah, so when you created a 4.2 emulator, did you create a large screen or larger device?
Yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion.
There was anything with the release where you can mimic devices.
Yes, new 221 ADT Tools 21 has a new device dialog, and on the second tab you can just choose the device that you want and choose Nexus 10 or Nexus 7 on there. It would be interesting to see if it had multi-user. I love multi-user. It rocks.
Unfortunately, I've gotten lazy. I have actually not yet created a 4.2 AVD. I've been using only devices.
Right. Well, that's not lazy. That's what you're supposed to do if you've got them.
Zero world problems.
Right. Multi-user. Interesting to see.
Nico in France is using one of my favourite features that was added in Jelly Bean.
What's that?
The activity options class, which lets you create these nice scaled animations when you're launching a new activity. So you can, if you look at recents, for example, where it scales up from a thumbnail to the full screen, which I think is a really, really cool way of retaining context for the user. And it says, yeah, they love it, but how do they do the reverse? So you can do this. You can set a custom animation, so you won't be able to like scale it to a view or to a bitmap like you can with the activity options, but you can just set a custom animation to kind of scale it to a certain place. So it's the standard activity dot set pending transition,
override
pending transition, something like this, I think. So I think you can do that. So yeah, you can't do a scale down to a thumbnail or anything like that, but you can get close to that kind of behavior using the standards. Yeah. Which is googling like
I love it when Stack
rapidly.
Overflow answers come up before our official documentation.
It's good thing.
Totally.
As long as they point to our documentation, it's fine.
Chetan Roman's talk at this year's DevOps covered this exact point. But, I don't think those talks are going live until December.
Too far away.
And yeah, the talk, it was a 3-hour talk they gave, and there was approximately 400 awesome tips. So we didn't manage to remember them all, but I'll be watching that and sharing that talk as much as possible.
I want to rewatch that awesome talk. There's so many tips in it. I think I might create a
take an
G
hour
plus
each.
thread and just
Yeah.
document all of those tips.
Yossi has added the Hangout toolbox. What the hell's going to happen now? Load or something. Sure.
I think Yossi should just be joining the Google Plus Hangout, and then he can literally just pull out a new Yossi plugin of the week. Last week it was the meme one, wasn't it?
Oh, the G++, I see what you mean. When you say the Google Plus
Basically, it's everyday plugin of the week, but okay.
plugin of the week. We should have an
With
of the week
Yossi.
thing with Yossi.
Any questions from the participants? Who have we got down there? Who's
There's unknown user. I think that might
Hello,
be wrong,
unknown
but
user.
It's unknown user somehow, which is magic. Yossi.
Do you have a question?
Nope. Okay. Have we got something that you'd like to answer? You particularly excited about any other questions?
Does anyone understand this question from Zaborda?
I'm going in.
Zaborda asks, how can you make a dialogue appear as swiping in a fragment? I want to show a dialogue over a fragment to mark a multi-valued question. The fragment is in a view pager. How can this be achieved?
Is it literally like you move the fragment across, dialogue comes up?
Well, we can do that.
Yeah.
Just look for the view page transitions, page change, whatever.
I think he doesn't want the fragment to move, he wants the dialogue to pop
I
up.
was going to say, fundamentally it sounds
What are you doing?
But you do get a callback when the view page is swiped. At that point, you want to bring up dialogue. But yes, I agree with Nick that doing that, then throwing up a dialogue just for a user perspective, just sounds nasty.
If you really needed to do something which blocked interaction until something had been filled in, I would probably have an extra view in your layout, which was showing inside the view pager, and then have that enabled. And then once they finish interacting with it, get rid of it. But not actually have a dialogue on top, just have it as a view inside your layout.
Inline.
Inline, yeah. So as you swipe across, it's already there, and then they can dismiss it.
I'm not sure I completely get it, but a
that's what we're talking about.
multi-valued question. Multi-valued question. Is that like multi-select? Select.
I'm wondering if maybe he means he just wants to, like you touch it and it pops up. These are what you could populate the field with, and then it closes down again. And,
Oh, maybe.
I think that's from Swansea.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I saw, that the fragment doesn't really move in the pager. Basically, when it touches, then you get a dialogue with all the possible options to choose from.
Yeah. Kind of sounds to me like even your traditional dialogue activity, the transparent background, would be just fine. But that's
So, yeah, I'm not a massive fan of dialogues here
Yeah.
because of the, I don't know, not a huge fan. It sounds like what you're trying to do is like a multi-step wizardy type behavior, in which case you might want to take a look at some awesome code which Roman Nurek shockingly open sourced.
Go Roman.
So if you go to code.google.com/p/Roman Nurek -miss, no, dash code, Roman
Where are you
Nurek dash
reading that
code, my head, it's up there. There is a sample, or you can look at his G+ feed from a month or so back, or you can go.
Probably search for Roman flow. Roman's flow.
He
It'll
did
come
have a
up.
blog
First thing
post on it, didn't he? Or
A G++,
G++,
yeah.
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 Just follow Roman Nurek on G++ and look at his wizard, because he's a wizard.
Wizard flow. Yeah.
Next
Next
design in
7.
action. Wizard hat. The Roman.
I'm sure Yossi could do a hangout extension for it. Okay. Next one.
Should we next one?
Well, yeah, unless there's anything coming in on.
I'll double check.
Is anyone checking the YouTube comments? Because they're always hilarious
I can do that right now.
and so valuable.
But no questions in G+.
Okay.
So again, moderator.
Moderator up, okay. I have a fragment from the sport library containing a view with a flip animation on the y-axis. It's kind of flipping a book page. Page sticks to the finger. However, at 85 degrees, the view disappears. Flipped question mark. How can I change this, or should I use OpenGL?
Wow.
I'm just wondering, is this just a simple matter of geometry that when you look at a texture edge on, there's nothing to see? I mean,
I think so, right?
yeah.
Yes, the
85 degrees, it's almost
90 degrees, it just disappears.
straight away.
If you want it to have some thickness, some.
Yeah, I wanted to. That's why I asked him. You know, is it just going away, or is it a transient condition that comes back as you scroll past, 95 degrees or something?
Yeah, I mean, we have 3D rotations.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering, is this an issue with our OpenGL with hardware UI? No, but that'd be one thing to check is actually just stick a flag in your manifest saying hardware accelerated equals false and try it just to rule out the possibility that there's some complication due to a hardware UI. Worth checking.
Right. And then if you want to get fancy about it, if you think it might be just a visual artifact because you're viewing the page edge on, then animate a bent page actually makes it less volume.
Better do. So I'm
Okay, I'm gonna.
Radley, sorry, you're going on mute.
we miss you, Al.
Yeah.
We miss you, Al. It's all right, dude. Have you got a question for us, though, Ravi? Now that you're muted, yes.
Okay. Right.
Just to finish up on that on that one as well. I think it sounds. You just locked your PC.
I was just going to say dodge the issue by actually giving the page some depth. Warp it, bend it, or something, so that it actually occupies all 3 dimensions.
I'm trying to work out, is it just like a transition animation, or is it following your finger, in which case are you using view pager perhaps? Because if so, then the latest release of Support Library introduced the new class page transformer, which lets you apply an effect as you page in. So that might actually be able to create this same kind of thing.
That'd be cool.
I'm not sure if that's what you're doing, but if it is, then take a look at page transformer.
Something weird's just happened. It's the first time I've ever seen Cedric without his hat on, and we're all wearing hats.
Yeah.
Irony. Cedric from Mobile. Hi. Come on, say hello. But without the hat.
I am on the net.
Live, yeah, to the world.
Okay, nice to meet you. I like this one. I haven't had one like this.
They're selling it in the partners hall over there.
I might be one.
You're always wearing it.
Anyway.
No, he's got the cap.
He's got the cap.
I forgot it this morning. In Paris.
All right. Should we let Ravi ask his question?
Yeah, Ravi, what's your question, dude? Just unmute first. Or it's going to be very hard for the internet to hear you.
You need to unmute him?
No, he can unmute himself. You can only read. Here we go. Yep.
Hi Sparky, how are you?
Hey Ravi, what's up?
Yeah, good. I like your beard, man. Just have some quick question about Android development for kind of application management with using kind of session management and stuff. So, is there any effective way to do kind of session management in Android, just like we do in Microsoft technologies using special session management servers and stuff? So, is there any kind of inbuilt thing which we can manage, or do we need to dispatch some tokens using kind of shared preferences or internal storage and stuff like that?
Are you talking about a session with a server application?
No. I mean, if we have a login, I mean, we don't have an external server which manages the sessions, but the server only authorizes the username and the password. Only thing we need is to make sure the user is in the right session, or just to make sure if user do not make any activity within past 2 hours, so the existing session goes out and user is forced to log in again.
Yeah, you can just set after 2 hours. And if they you can do any number of things. Slightly.
Sorry.
There's a lot of feedback coming back through. Is there any chance you've got any headphones?
You're not viewing the Hangout in 2 windows, are you?
Yeah, I'll close the YouTube one.
Okay.
So no, I don't think there is anything automatic that you're asking for, which does session management inside an Android application. But I would build it in whenever the on pause or on what happens, you do your On pause, we could say the last activity they did, and then when it was in, then you can check when they, how long ago it was activity.
Yeah, I mean, currently what we are doing is we are storing everything in an SQLite server, SQLite databases, and whenever there is no touch activity for a predefined period of time, and we are forcing the user to make the login activity once again. But I thought if there is any kind of a standard way to manage everything automatically, which is embedded into the Android operating system, then...
Well, I think it's pretty unlikely that a user will leave their device turned on the screen without interrupting for a long period of time now.
I mean, one use case is where you've got socket stuff coming down, where if you have a network will actually just go, which is a waste of the socket. At that point, the way I did it was broadcast intent would be visible. They're on displayed. When we open the log. Otherwise, if they're all in just kind of back.
Sounds like a good case.
Yeah, exactly. So that would probably be our manager and the broadcast. But yeah, it's where I think maybe it could be and just start again. But
Thanks, Robbie.
No problem.
Excellent. Okay. Next question.
it's starting to get hot as well.
I don't know if my moderator is showing these questions in the same order as yours, because I think we skipped a couple.
Oh, really?
But maybe they're further down the line in yours.
Any that we haven't got to yet?
Did you get Cedric from Switzerland? Which of the following Bluetooth Low Energy actions can we perform in API 17?
None.
My answer was none.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
The device supports the low energy profile, Nexus 4, but I don't think you can actually interact with that API from your application in any way whatsoever right
There's
now.
no software implementation.
No, but the driver level is all there, and it will use it. But... Sorry. Oh no. No.
Gabriel Ittner from Berlin wants to know, is it allowed to send a user to a website to pay for the app using wallet or PayPal or some other payment method after maybe using the app for a period of time for free?
No.
And I said, no, Google Wallet is the only allowed payment processor for apps in Google Play, with the exception of this sort of media exemption for content which is purchasable and consumable in many different places.
Yeah, and I know that the next thing you're going to say is, but Google's payment services inside in-app billing or paid applications don't support the country that I want, so can I still not just use the website? And of course, the answer is still no, unfortunately. If you want to list it in Google Play, you have to use the Google Play billing services. There's no other option, really.
Can I also add Google in-app payment and also have a PayPal payment as an option, or if the PayPal option is on?
Must just be Google, Google's payment service if it's listed in the Play Store.
Oh, single one.
Yeah, just a single one.
Of course, the beauty of the Android marketplace or the Android ecosystem is there is more than one app store. We don't lock you into just one channel for buying apps, and if people prefer to have other payment options besides just Google Wallet, then there are lots of other app stores they can list in.
Yeah.
Yeah, read the Google Android DDA, the Developer Distribution Agreement, and also the
content policy
that supports this, and it's all spelled out for you. It says you must use the an approved payment authorizer.
Actually, that changed now as well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very clear now that it's only Google Wallet.
And that is Google Wallet.
Oh.
Mute.
And as if by magic, it is muted. I was hoping that someone from the Dutch Android user group would walk past so we could grab them and they could plug that awesome user group. They founded exactly 1 year ago.
Happy birthday.
One conference ago, I should say, really. But yeah, happy birthday to the Dutch Android user group. And if Johan comes back round, I will certainly grab him.
See, obviously
say hello.
they're going to be watching this show right now, so they should be like all just running right now. And if they're not,
Yeah, of
then
course. All the Dutch Android user group, from wherever you're watching this show from right now, come and say hello to the rest of the internet. We
have just been joined in the Hangout by a new member. Welcome, Paul. Is there anything you'd like to talk about, Android related?
Hi, thank you. I just had one question in terms of Android. Is kind of why the war on SD cards?
Why the war on SD cards?
Is it war on SD cards?
Attack! It's only Nexus devices, right? We just want a good user experience, and SD cards have too many failed just user interactions, user experiences, everything about them. There's no good model for having an SD card inside a device. If you're going to start installing apps to it, you pop it out and they no longer exist. If we start installing apps to it, you pop it out and no longer exist. If you mount it on another computer, they are generally formatted and can't be accessed from both devices at the same time. And there's just so many reasons.
It's not
why
great user
okay.
experience. You end up having to get the user to manage storage, which is a pretty crappy user experience.
And then at some point you want to upgrade from a 16 gig to a 32 gig, and you have to somehow get your techie friend to manually copy over everything from one to the other, including all the hidden files, so things don't break and you don't lose all your data from
back. Do you exactly that when you buy a new phone? Now,
sorry?
Do you not have to do exactly that now when you buy a new phone? If all of my stuff is on the internal storage of a phone, and I get a new phone because it's got old or whatever, I get the next Nexus or whatever it is, I have to do exactly that process that you just described there to copy all the stuff, all my data from my existing phone over to my new phone.
No, you do not, because you can do a backup through the Gmail account.
You can do
and also you can use the auto download to all the apps.
Even if the copying was using, there's still a million other cases that an SD card isn't a good user experience for the majority of users. They are sought after by techies and people who like to carry a lot of content around, but it's not a great user experience.
You have the choice, right?
You have the choice,
The Nexus
Samsung is still including them.
I heard a rumor that future versions of Android are not going to allow read-write access to SD cards.
Wait, what? You know about future versions of Android?
Wow. So I heard a rumor from someone of a friend, the kind of thing. That like a future version of Android is going to disable read-write access.
But you think that if that did happen, it would be like a manufacturer wouldn't be able to work around it. I mean, Asus have managed to do quite a good job, I think, of including multiple SD card support on their devices. You have a micro SD, USB slots, all these different things, and it works very well. I mean, it is an open platform that they can do what they want with.
Wait, are you actually talking about the new permission for reading the SD card? Is that what you're talking about?
Possibly, yes.
Oh, okay, that's different.
Yeah. So we did that. So we've introduced a new permission as of API 16 where it's optional. A permission to read, because at the moment, prior to 16, the SD card was world readable and anyone can read anything on that, and the security issues that ensue because of this and mistreating it. So yeah, we introduced a new permission, but so as we didn't break all the apps and to give people some time to upgrade, it's optional at the moment. So if you have the developer options, you can go in and turn it on and enforce this permission, so that only applications with the read SD card permission, like the write SD card permission, can actually read from it. But so in some future release, we've said that we're going to make the default to enforce this.
Fair enough.
So yeah, it's just we're giving the app developers some time to update their apps to ask for this new permission.
But we're not taking anything away in this case. Cedric's back, and he's been and bought a hat. Cedric's back with hat again.
All right.
Hi guys. It's wonderful. It's nice to be.
Yeah, we're doing great. Thanks.
Do you want us to give a quick plug for Android VM?
Yes, with pleasure. With pleasure. Okay. Hello to everyone. So I'm Cedric Havadek from Genie Mobile, and I'm at DroidCon, and we are doing conference tomorrow on a software he's calling Andro VM. It's an Android virtual machine on your PC, so you can do you can emulate your Android smartphone and tablet and make all your tests you want and emulate all the sensor of a mobile. And it's quite a famous open source project. We have more than 200,000 downloads, and so you can go and help us to develop it and to test it for us. AndroVM.org. This is what I can say.
Everything that helps with Android testing is always got to be good. Especially, yeah, okay, I'll put this back down again. We have now also been joined by someone who's now 1 year old. It's the Dutch Android user group.
Yay! Hi guys.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to
thank
the
you,
Dutch
thank
Android
you.
user group. Are you not feeling left out about a hat?
Fine.
There we go.
Good to see you from this side of the camera.
Epic. I can just snowboarding or something.
I need to grab a screenshot of this.
How many members of the Dutch Android user group now, Johan?
Well, we have 330 something members, but I
we
don't
should've
think
done
they're all Dutch.
We should have done a big push to make it 365 by the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
We could have done that last week and been like,
No, so we have a happy
2020 hindsight.
hardcore group of about 50 who join our meetups, and that's a good amount. And maybe like 20-30 will always at every meetup. So
And where do you meet?
everywhere. So with the Dutch Android user group, so there's a lot of activity in Amsterdam itself. Of course, we have Amsterdam, and but there are a lot of one-man shop Android shops around the Netherlands. So there's a lot of activity in the east and the south as well. So and we tend to well, not serve them all, but I think in December we're going to have something about NFC. We have it in Eindhoven. That's a bit on the southeast of the Netherlands. So it's a good thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
And where do people go to find out more?
You can go to www.dutchaug.org. So
DutchAUG.org. Absolutely epic.
So any Dutch developers out there who...
No,
I was going to say, and Cedric, of course, from the Paris Android user group.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
we're going to plug PORG as well. Is it PORG.org? PORG.com?
Yeah, PORG.fr.
FR, of course. PAUG.fr for the French Android user group. We're like 2,000 members now.
Yeah. And we're working very hard to have also DroidCon in Paris for next year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for next year.
About time, yeah. I think I'm a member of all three. London Android user group, Paris Android user group, and Dutch Android user group.
Yeah,
I've been through all
promiscuous.
three. Yeah, I know. I wonder how many
He
Android
gets
user
around.
groups I'm a member of. What about you? Have you joined them all?
Yeah.
You've gone for the Pikachu approach? Got to catch them all, damn it.
So if you enjoy these
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
cheers,
Have a
Cedric.
nice day.
Yeah, if you enjoy these hangouts talking about Android development, why not do them IRL with some other Android developers?
Yeah, absolutely epic. Love the Android
And
user
learn
groups.
lots of cool stuff.
okay,
Yeah, thanks, man.
thank you.
So I think we're kind of out of time, right?
Oh, God, yeah, we've got 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
And
Just wanted to ask you one
So I can do some.
Ravi and Niki, and
go on, Yossi, jump in. What were you going to say, Yossi?
Yeah, you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. About the GCM, one quick question. Basically, the Android model is that apps are to be put on the background. You press the home button and the app continues to work until the system closes down and the process is successfully terminated by the system.
Yeah.
But if the user presses force stop,
Yeah.
then the GCM messaging won't work on the device. That's
Right.
what I saw. Is that the designed framework for the GCM to work on the?
Not at all, no. The app shouldn't be running at all anyway from boot of the system. It should just be going straight through to your broadcast receiver, right, and getting picked up and starting whichever parts of your application are needed to process the message.
Yeah, but I'm not getting anything. Basically, when I press the force stop on the settings.
Pretty sure you're not unregistering from the service?
Yeah, I'm sure, because unregistering from the service is only when the application, we have an exit button on our app that keeps the device registered to the GCM.
Well, that's a bad thing anyway. You have an exit button on your app that then closes the GCM connection, did you say?
No, it doesn't close the GCM. It keeps the device registered and closes all the other stuff. So the user basically doesn't see us on foreground or background. We kill the service for the communication and everything, terminate it, and basically then you can get a GCM message. But when I do the force stop on our app, it basically stops delivering the GCM.
sounds like a weird edge case.
It is a slightly strange edge case, because people shouldn't be hitting force stop on apps.
Yeah, I know, but basically you have users that do it, so...
They're going to do it if they don't trust your application. So it seems more like an app issue, that if you've got users users hitting force stop on your application. They're doing it for the exact reason that they want to stop it popping up all these messages, and it's their only way probably.
No, basically, I'm more paranoid than most people. So basically, when I use the phone, every time I don't have any things on the recent, then I go to the settings and just press force stop on all the applications.
Force stop kills broadcasts as well, broadcast reception.
Could it be kind of a back-off period? Just kind of force stop, and then Dalvic's preventing it from being restarted so quick.
It could also be that, yeah. It does sound like, I mean, if I generally don't force stop applications.
Yeah, me too. But just for testing, I did it. So that's when I found that issue when users complained that doing the force stop.
Because when you install an application, until you run it for the very first time, it's in a different status, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's in the application stop state.
Exactly. I was wondering whether. I don't know offhand. I'd have to look at Activity Manager.
And there's things you can do to get around it, but I don't really want to suggest them, to be honest.
I don't think that's probably a good suggestion not to suggest them.
Yeah. I think Rich is nailing it on the head. Really, it sounds like there is some behaviour of force stop that we don't understand, and you should try and understand why your users are force stopping your app. It might be that.
Honestly, if I was pressing the exit button, I don't know. Would I still expect the messages to come in? Yeah, I guess I would.
I would.
Yeah, I guess sign out. If you change the word exit to sign out, it would make a lot more sense. Users would understand what it's doing.
Yeah, we have the sign out button, but we also have the exit button to keep us working on the.
Is that little Mia?
Yeah. Just woke up.
Actually, we shouldn't have woken Mia up because it is time for us to quit today, and we're not allowed to run over today because there's a big Android barbecue to get to. And
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Cheers.
Have fun. Have fun.
Cheers, everybody else. Thanks for joining us today, and we should be back in the normal environment next week in the London office and the Munich office. Till next week. Normal time next week as well, Wednesday, 2 p.m.
Thanks for joining us,
3 p.m.
guys.
CETA.
Keep Android dubbing.
Keep Android dubbing. Make awesome apps.
So next week, the first question will be mine that you left